Well, we made it. It only took 4 months to get here. The long-awaited second season of Invincible has finally concluded. And I'm happy to say that it was worth the wait. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and tell your friends if you like the content. Let's dive into Invincible Season 2. I thoroughly enjoyed this season. I think I may even prefer it over Season 1. The stakes are higher, the action is more abundant, and the villains more formidable. I think the best aspect of this season is the writing. This season dives extensively into this universe, dividing its focus among many of the key players. And where other shows or movies that have attempted to do this may have failed, Invincible Season 2 succeeds tremendously. The first season concentrated mostly on establishing this universe, centering it around Mark and him developing his powers and his relationship with Nolan. We watch as Mark, an aspiring superhero, looked up to his father with great admiration, only for the two to finally come to blows in the finale as Nolan's true nature as a Viltrumite is discovered, and Mark vows to stop him. We're left off with Nolan beating Mark within inches of his life before retreating into space to areas unknown. Season 1 was fantastic and a ton of fun. But you can tell in Season 2 the writers took all of that and they ran with it and had a blast. Reiterating my previous statement, Season 2 divides its time between many of the show's prominent characters, and it does it so well. You never feel as though you're being pulled away from a more compelling plotline to focus on a lesser one. Everything meshes so eloquently, and it's structured in a way that every narrative and every event that plays out intricately affects the other. It's worth noting that Mark is still very much the main protagonist. The season does not stray away from that fact. So if you're worried at all about this season leaving Mark by the wayside, don't worry, there is plenty of him. Mark's story this season is even more interesting and more compelling than Season 1. We follow Mark as he attempts to navigate the life of a normal college freshman, while constantly being yanked away to deal with world and universe-ending threats. We delve heavily into him struggling as he tries to balance this normal life with that of his superhero persona. So much so that it continues to put overwhelming stress on his personal relationships, especially those with his mother and his girlfriend Amber. Just as he begins to start to figure things out, he's visited by a shape-shifting alien from the planet Thraxa, who pleads for Mark's assistance in stopping a threat on their home world. Mark agrees, only to discover Nolan upon arriving on the planet, who has become their ruler as he has married their queen and birthed a son, Mark's baby brother Oliver. Mark begrudgingly teams up with his father to combat a Viltrumite attack, only to be beat again as Nolan gets taken hostage. The second half of this season, Mark's story becomes even more gripping as he continually grapples with his rage. As attempts on the lives of the people closest to him become more and more prevalent, Mark begins to unleash more power to combat these threats, resulting in a constant fear that he will someday become his father, if he doesn't learn how to control his anger. This comes to fruition in the finale as he faces off against Angstrom Levy, his greatest threat yet. A time and dimension hopping villain who holds a bloodthirsty grudge against Mark for the damage his alternate selves have caused so many. Angstrom nearly kills Debbie and threatens Oliver's life, and Mark finally reaches a boiling point, beating Angstrom to death. We end the season as Mark wrestles with the act he committed, frightened that he's becoming the person he hoped he never would. This arc that Mark goes through this season is so thrilling and so heartbreaking. I'm excited to see where this character goes in the future. This was easily my favorite plotline this season, and it makes sense because Mark is inevitably the main character of this show. But there were so many other good ones. Alan's story was also super engaging as he travels the universe, attempting to gain support for the Coalition's cause to stand against the Viltrumites. We see him beat to a pulp by 3 Viltrumite soldiers, only to be revived stronger than ever, able to match the Viltrumites' power. Towards the end of the season, Alan actually infiltrates a Viltrumite prison and befriends Nolan in an attempt to rally him to their cause. We follow closely with so many of the Guardians this season as well. The Immortal, as he grapples with his life after being revived to lead the Guardians, knowing full well that he's outmatched by Mark. We later see him leave the team due to his ineptitude of being able to handle the strain of the job after Duplicate is killed in action. It's heartbreaking. We finally get to see Rex become a full-fledged hero as he holds off a team of villains by himself, losing his hand in the process, and for the first time putting his life on the line selflessly, altering his ultimate outlook on life because of it. And then there's Nolan. We ended season 1 with him flying off into space, and I think we can agree he's a villain you love but also love to hate. But season 2 puts those opinions to the test. We see Nolan now as a human, not a Viltrumite. He remarries not out of duty to his role, but out of his desire to do so. He rules over a race of aliens that he vows to protect. Upon reuniting with Mark, you soon discover that it's clear that he is ashamed of his past actions. He is a man engulfed by immeasurable remorse and regret. Nothing makes this more evident than when he admits to Alan that he misses Debbie. Even after all he did, the unnecessary slaughtering of the Guardians, the senseless beating of his own son, the betrayal he committed, you still feel for him. And that's a sign of phenomenal writing. And beyond these few, there are so many more storylines I could go on about, but it would just take too much time. All I can say is that this season pulls you in so many different directions, and they all converge so neatly and beautifully in the end. The action this season is just as violent, visceral, and bombastic as it was in season 1. Just as bloody, gruesome, and grueling, and maybe even more so. The villains are another standout. Angstrom Levy, who puts Mark's morals to the ultimate test. The Sequids, a Martian parasite that attempted invasion on Earth, leading to a hilarious review of Shapesmith's origins and the chaos his choices have set in motion. Anissa, a Viltrumite sent to Earth with the task of recruiting Mark to finish Nolan's job. As Angstrom tests Mark's moral compass, Anissa puts his physical limitations to the ultimate test. All of these villains and more are just fantastic. There honestly wasn't much from this season that I took issue with. My main problem was the way this season was split in half, as I think it's a problem for many people. In a time of being able to binge watch most series, I actually enjoy when streamers mandate weekly episode releases. I think it helps to keep interest and build anticipation for a show. But this season is only 8 episodes long, and there was no reason for it to be released in 2 halves. It was sort of frustrating because I had to go back and watch the first 4 episodes to try and remember what happened, because it had been so long since the first half of season 2 had released. I don't like the precedent that this sets either. It's sort of the issue I have with today's video game industry, and its tendency to release products before they're ultimately ready. They should have just pushed the whole release of this season until they were finished with all 8 episodes. It definitely would have made for a far better viewing experience. Invincible remains one of the best superhero series running right now, if not the best. Season 2 not only built off the excellent storytelling of Season 1, but it elevated it to a new level. Everything from the insane action to the captivating plot threads, to the depth at which the writers analyze these characters. Invincible Season 2 is near perfection. If it weren't for the jarring split season, it may have been. I can't wait to see what Robert Kirkman and his team have in store for the next one.